to Chocolate for the Soul with Ramona on IntellectualRadio.com. I want to thank our sponsor, Scene Chicago. We are really excited. I'm really excited about our topic today. We're talking about money. And things that we need to do to get our money situation straight in 2018. Initially I was going to call the show Financial Freedom, but we hear that term a lot. And so I wanted to call this show Financial Empowerment. I want people listening to feel empowered over their money, over their finances. And oftentimes people don't. They feel like other circumstances come into play where they feel over their money. So I'm really thankful for our guests today. We have two with us right now. To my left is Tony Wilkins, and to his left is Lex Anderson. Can you both introduce yourselves, tell a little bit about your background, and how you wound up in finance and money?
Well, I'm originally from Chicago, born and raised Hyde Park. I worked in different sectors. I started out pretty much, my passion was politics. Moved over to the private sector, telecom, and eventually worked into cutting my teeth into digital marketing right now. And I'm working on a great project called Barbershop Network News, which is basically boosting the intelligence of political views as well as financial views for African American communities. So the financial piece for me is very, very important to get financial literacy to people of color, especially African Americans, in order to boost their intelligence and to provide those services, because the only way that we can move forward as far as economic development is to be financially literate. And I feel like that's a very important piece. So based on this experience here, I would like to really spread the word and spread some information, viable information, basic information to give increased literacy when it comes to financing and how to manage not only your money, economic development, real economic development, not programs that tell you that identify economic development versus true economic development. So I'm also here just to learn and my good friend.
You talked about politics and money, and we're going to talk a little bit about how those two are related.
Sure. Right.
Tony, tell us about your background and the multiple hats that you wear and how you sort of got into the financial industry.
Sure. Well, I didn't start off as highbrow as Lex did. I grew up on 78th and 79th and Cottage, so a little further down on the south side. But I come from a very large family. I think my mother was the person who knew how to sit on a penny and make it scream until it turned into 15 cents. Right. So managing money was very big. I tell people all the time that one of the things I love doing now the most is going to the store. Because when I was at the store, we get to the end and my mother would have to say, well, the Pop-Tarts go back. How many are you now? Oh, the Kool-Aid has to go back. So finances were always very, very important to me. So I always thought, I don't ever want money to be a problem in my life from a very young guy. So I went to school. I went to the best school I could get into. I came out as an electrical engineer. I thought when I got out of school after 4 years of electrical engineering, I would never have to go to school, read a book, look for a job ever again, because I started as a fresh out of school engineer at Chrysler Corporation. Ramona, about 30 years would go by, I would have a gold watch, I'd have 2 cars in the driveway, I'd have a couple of kids, awesome place. And after a year, I could not believe it. It was the biggest slap in my face, because I had spent all this time to get my degree. And now I realize you cannot let your finances depend on one person. Because when you work for somebody, an individual can always come in and say, today's your last day, it's been fun. You don't have to go home, but you got to get out of here. So that, at 23 years of age with a fabulous electrical engineering degree, told me I cannot depend on any one entity. Freedom. If I didn't want to have to count what was coming out of the shopping cart when I went to the store anymore, I was going to have to be more independent on my finances. So that's what really drove my mind. I thought I was going to start an engineering firm or be a partner with somebody in an engineering firm. And one day, a friend of mine called me up and told me about investment banking. And I will never forget the words that he said. He said, Tony, these guys named investment bankers. $10 million for 6 weeks worth of work. And we wrote the check faster than we pay the pizza delivery person. So I can't be an engineer anymore.
Right.
So I went back to school, University of Chicago, got my business degree, and came out in the financial industry. So the financial industry is much more profitable, much more lucrative. And 3 or 4 years, I realized, well, wait. I still, even though I'm making a lot of money, somebody can still come by and fire me, and it'll be over. But I was working pretty hard, and I had money in the stock market, had money in the bond market. My 401k was maxed out, which we'll talk about, 401ks and IRAs and things like that. Mm-hmm. And about 32, 33 years old, had 2 children, and I thought, I'm back in the same place I was 10 years ago. I need to start investing in stuff. Right. So I started buying apartments. I first bought a condo in Richmond Park. We bought a 1-bedroom apartment with 4 people. Oh, well. So then we went and bought some property on the west side for tax sales. That did not work out well. Didn't know what we were doing. But with that learning, we went and bought more real estate. And then somebody came to me with an idea and said, hey, we're thinking about doing this, that, and the other. Money. That went to zero. Somebody else came along. It didn't work out too well either. But over 10 years, 15 years, and now 26 years of investing in early stage companies, I have 2 jobs. Early stage, I still work at a large financial institution because that's where the money comes. That's a steady 9 to 5. And I tell people my 5 to midnight is investing, connecting, coaching, and providing cash to early stage entrepreneurs. So I did a lot of work at 1871 at University of Chicago's Polsky Center, Emil Cambry at Blue 1647. And as you know, Ramona, I'm a big fan of anybody who is paying their bills by the business that they have, including Monterey Chocolates.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So, Tony, you said something, and I'd love for you and Lex to talk about this, because you talked about your first experience with money as a child.
Right.
And in some families, money, particularly families that don't have a lot of money, it's taboo. Like, you don't talk about it because you don't really have it. And so before I delve into my other questions, I'd love for you to talk about what money means to you. Like, when you say the word money, what does it mean to you? And if you could incorporate a little bit about what you were taught about money. I mean, you talked a little bit about that, but I'd love for both of you, because I think that's going to set the tone for the rest of the conversation, sort of how we each view money.
Yeah, sure. I just want to expand a little bit more about what Barbershop Network News does. And the founder of Barbershop Network News is a good friend of mine, Jeffrey Coleman. And once again, he brought me on board to really kind of spread political news and intelligence, but we also are incorporating a financial piece. The important part about the barbershops and why we chose the barbershops is because they are the pillars of the community outside of the church, and this is where people congregate and where it's a good way to disseminate good information. And who better to do that than who are actually in the neighborhood. You have entrepreneurs on every other block in the Black community who are barbers, who are really managing money, having a so-called business plan, whether it's in their head, written down, or whatever. That clientele, they have to market themselves, and they deal in cash capital. So they have to save, they have to rent their booths, they have to, really, you have to respect these pillars as entrepreneurs, real entrepreneurs. And that's the word we're trying to really get out. And they're good examples of people who deal in cash every single day and are there years, sometimes in the same location, which means they have to be somewhat successful. So we're trying to build those models from their voices to not only disseminate information, but also as examples as entrepreneurs. So those are just one very basic prime examples of entrepreneurship and businesses that you engage in. We don't necessarily go to church every week, but what do? We go to the barbershop and the beauty shop. We keep our looks up. So, that's a cash cow that's turning, that this is small examples that we really need to go from ground up as far as financial literacy is concerned to express what money is. It could be capital, but to me, the most important money is the money you don't see, and the money that you save, and the money that what am I spending before I even eat? You know, debt to income ratio, things of that nature. I think those are really, things that need to be taught in our communities. That's what money means to me, is literacy and capital, but at the same time, what you have investment wise and in the tank. So.
Talk about the money you don't see, because I'm hoping there's someone else besides me who's wondering, what is money you don't see? Where is that money?
Well, your taxes. If you have a 401k, money that you don't see, that you don't have to be rich to have a portfolio,
right?
And I think everyone should have. The best banker I ever knew was my grandmother, who was a housewife, but she managed the money. And guess what? Come home, you give your wife your check, and everything was taken care of. Well, in these days and times, like, why would I trust that? Well, you trust your bank with your money, so why not trust yourself and your loved ones with the same, sentiment? So she was the best budgeter I ever knew. I didn't know, and the best type of money to have is to be comfortable and not know how much you have. If we were rich or poor, I didn't know. I know we ate every day. We had we had a house. We went to good schools, good environment, and whether we had a savings account or checking account, I didn't know that. It was money I didn't see, but it was the money that makes you comfortable and you're not living check to check, and that you have set aside. That, to me, that's money that you don't see.
Right. That's a great segue, because people ask me, rich, middle class, or poor when you grew up?
I had no clue.
I had no idea.
Right.
I had no idea. I know we ate every day, and I know there were 6 of us going to school every day. I know Dad had a couple of jobs, Mom had a couple of jobs, but I don't think I really realized how my upbringing was until I got into college, and I saw some young ladies taking a tea bag, and they put the tea bag in their cup of water. Then they went to go get some more and put another tea bag in the cup. I was like, whoa, why are you wasting tea bags?
Right.
That's supposed to make a pot.
Exactly.
So in some ways, I think for younger people, very young people, if you talk about money, because either you're so busy as a parent trying to make it, younger children, you want to shield them from how tough things might really be. Right. So you don't want to put that on their minds right now. And even my wife and I didn't really talk about money until our kids were almost in 7th and 8th grade. And the way that came by was they said, both of us are very, very stingy, because we're putting that money away where you can't see it.
Frugal, what you mean.
I don't know how much my wife has till we do our taxes. I'm like, whoa. But that's good, because that's extra money. But we, when my sons were 7th and 9th grade, my wife wanted me to give them an allowance. I was like, they don't need an allowance. So back and forth about the allowance. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, fine. You want an allowance? Come up to my office. We'll talk about allowance.
Right. And as per my understanding, financial education is a systematic process requiring knowledge related to finance.
Right.
Financial literacy, to me, is the outcome of the financial education process, which help in making appropriate financial decisions. I would like to know what your views on the difference between financial education and financial literacy.
Sure. So I think somewhat like reading, right? I know a lot of guys from the South, carpenters, cannot read, and certainly can't read great novels.
Right.
But they have successful businesses. Right. That I would call literacy. You need money.
Right.
You don't need to know how to do discounted cash flow analysis to do an assessment of what money is all about.
Right.
But you do need to know. I would call literacy, knowing about financial education, acquiring additional knowledge.
Right.
So you have to have money. And back to your point, Ramona, to me, money has always meant freedom. Freedom for what you want to do. And I've always been kind of a long-term person. Even when I was a little kid with my hand on the shopping cart, I thought to myself, I never want to have to put anything back. I don't want to do that. It's embarrassing. I don't ever want it to happen.
Right.
Across the street from a vacant lot where Robinson Movers parked their trucks. And there were always a bunch of winos sitting around in Robinson parking lot. They're drinking Richard's Wild Irish Rose. And one day, my father came out and says, "You know what the problem is with those guys?
They didn't have ice. They just drink it straight.
They just drinking it
You know, I'm
straight."
just
Because I had to pick up the empty bottles in front of our house.
Right.
Say, but he said,
Right.
and that's where they're going to be. The more comes over and picks them up. And I thought, I don't want that.
Right.
I do not want that. What do I need to do that? So that was not education. I didn't know financial education, but I knew I didn't want that. And when I got older, I met my father-in-law. A good bit of money, was making a good bit of money, but not really investing it, but thinking, okay, I'll get to it. He told me, I think he had an associate's degree in college education. Like many older black men, new Cadillac every 2 years. 2 jobs, maybe 3, maybe 4, I don't know. A casual conversation, he said, I sent all 3 of my kids to college. No financial aid, no loans, jobs.
Yeah.
I didn't have children at the time. And I thought, that's what I'm going to do. So again, went off to college. Every quarter, I would think, okay, there's another BMW I'm sending to your school. Oops, there's a Lexus I'm sending to your school.
Right.
And when they said they didn't want to go to college, I'm like, fine, don't go to college. I'll take your college tuition and have a boat, and I'll put it college education. I'll be naming the boat. But she didn't let me have that money. She went on.
No, she said college it is.
But you have to think. If you're not to have the experience to think about what you want. If you're not fortunate enough to have somebody tell you, this is how you must save, you're in a bad spot. So hopefully this program today will help out. Let me give you one other quick story. Talk about money people don't see. One of the wonderful things that's happened in the 401k industry with large corporations is they have something called enrollment into your 401k. So as a new person coming into a job, 22, 23, 24 years old, when you sign up for everything, if you don't say, hey, put 6% of my money away, companies will take 6% out of your salary and put it into a portfolio, tax exempt, tax deferred, future retirement one day. For me at a very large bank one time, worked for me for 3 years. She intelligent, hardworking, and when she went to leave, I said, how much money do you have in your 401k? You know what she said? I got a 401k. She had $5,000 in that account that she didn't even know about. But those are those kinds of things where you have to just put that money away. Not necessarily a rainy day, but whatever it is you want to have on a given day.
And we're going to talk about that. So you are listening to Chocolate for the Soul with Ramona, and today we're talking about money on IntellectualRadio.com. Again, I want to thank our sponsor, Scene Chicago. So for those of you who are listening or watching, you may want to get your pen and pad like I do, because I do plan on taking notes because one of these questions is actually about me. So, we talked a lot about just sort of our foundation, how we grow up experiencing money as children, which really shapes part of our view, right? But then we experience a broader view. For me, it was similar, Tony. Like we never wanted for anything. I knew my mom would do a back of the envelope, budget in terms of going to the grocery store and paying bills and things like that. But I didn't really know until I got to college the different levels, the spectrum. And I grew up in New York City, so I remember, I went to school in Manhattan. I grew up in the Bronx, and I remember just the commute between the Bronx and Midtown. The neighborhoods changed and how the people changed. And I just remembered, like, everyone in my neighborhood, I grew up in a working class neighborhood, everybody worked. I just wanted my life to be easier. Like, I saw my mom struggle, my parents struggle, and I just knew, like, I never wanted to struggle. No one told me that before I opened the business, but struggle was a part of that journey.
Well, I think that goes into the objectives of economic development, what your objectives are, and that's to advance policies and that elevate the standard and quality of your life. That's the whole purpose of economic development versus literacy. But the development of economics is to pursue a different quality of life. Elevating those standards, creates the perception of value, which in turn attracts investment capital. So first time I ever had a 401 account is because I had a new family. And I need to get. I was like, I can't check. I have to think about someone else in my future. So I did the 401k, and the best thing that ever happened was that I forgot about it. And I did. Think the economy went bad, and I did have to dissolve it. But luckily, I had that, and luckily, I had the opportunity to do that. And I think the literacy part, that as I had it and realized that it was growing, that's when the literacy light bulb went on and said, okay, well, let me diversify this and figure out how to manage this money and put it in, money market accounts or things of this nature. And these are the things that community and we learn as we go. And I think our biggest introduction to anyone that has liquid or equity is when we buy property. And because I was fortunate enough to grow up in a house, my grandfather did understand those terms and understand what that meant. So I think like I said, these terms and these things that people tend to shy away from a taboo are really literally within your own environment and your own upbringing and right next door to you, and you really look into it.
Lex, you talked about people not wanting to live paycheck to paycheck, but there are a lot of people watching and listening who are, who are really just figuring out how to make it. Like, who gets paid this month, and who gets, put off, right? And so as we think about, we're near the end of the year, we're coming up on 2018, people like to make a lot of goals, right? I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to do this, I'm going to save money. Save money is also, one of the big resolutions that people make. What advice do you give the group of people who are struggling from paycheck to paycheck and who are, and I kind of put these together, although they may not be, who are also struggling with debt? Because part of the living from paycheck to paycheck is just paying off, other kinds of debt, mortgages.
Well, I think he can speak more so than I can as far as getting a plan, but just really educating yourself on your debt to income ratio is like people don't acknowledge that, or people don't take a look at their debt, and it should be a certain percentage for you to feel comfortable and live on, and always save, no matter what it is. I was taught that from a very young age. I didn't always do it, but I was taught that. But I think core of evaluating your financial status is to really talk about your debt to income ratio, and in living above your means and cutting down on things that you really don't need. But why are you doing that? For economic development and having goals. So it's your goal to get a new car, it's your goal to have a a long, comfortable life, then you have to put that aside and sacrifice some things as well.
Yeah, I tell people, I mean, mine is really simple. I try to keep it really simple. So we're talking about my kids and their income was, you bring me an A. They wanted $1. They wanted like $1 for an A and 50 cents for a B.
Right.
I said, no, how about $10 for an A? And then you owe me $5 for a B and $20 for a C. We're not even gonna talk about D's. They're like, whoa, when they started doing the math in their heads, you could see the wheels start to turn, how much money they could make.
Mm-hmm.
Then I said, now, allowance, that'll be your top line. But now if you need money beyond that, you need to tell me on a spreadsheet, because if you can figure out Halo, you can figure out an Excel spreadsheet. You're going to give me your estimate of what kind of grades you're going to have. Make $50, $60, $70 on grades. Then, what do you spend your money on? Well, we're not going to have mom buy your bus card anymore. You got to buy a bus card every month. All right, that's a bus card. And then you can either make lunch in the cafeteria, your choice, but you figure out how much that lunch is going to be. And then if you want to buy some gym shoes or something, you're going to save for gym shoes. Because we're going to buy you 2 pairs at the beginning of the year. You want more, you got to pay for them. So how much is the gym shoes going to cost? And then anything else you want to do, play with. And then you subtract all those numbers from what you think you're going to make in your grades. If that number is negative and I'm okay with what you said, I'll pay for the negative part of it. Now, 6th grader. This is what I got. This is what I want to spend. This is what's going to be left over. And he may or may not fund it, but we would figure that out, and I would give them their money at the beginning of the month.
Right.
If they were running tight, got to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich before you go to work because you don't have any money left over. To do, for me, it's simple. What do you want to do, and what resources do you have to get it done?
Yeah.
And I don't
economic objectives.
Credit cards make it too easy. Payday loans make it too easy.
Right.
You go into, I mean, it's hard. You go past a new car dealership, you see a car's for sale, and you can afford it. Ooh, nice. We saw this in the economic crash where people said, oh, you can afford this $350,000 house, even though you just started working last week at Checkers.
Right.
It's math. It's simple math. It's simple math. And then if you want more,
and the whole economy was predicated on subprime lending, and when that failed, then
everything else fell out. But it was simple math. You could just say, this house is $300,000. I'm going to pay $1,000 a month, and
fixed rate.
It's going to be how many years to get it done? And it either would or wouldn't happen, especially if you start all these exotic things. So back to the simplicity. Just figure out what you want and do the math on how to get there. And you're going to find yourself saying, I can't afford to do that. I'm not doing that. I'll go if you're paying, but I'm not paying. I can't. I'm trying to build up for something in the future.
And credit card debt.
And credit card debt, yeah.
Yeah, so, we hear all the advice, pay the highest interest first or the biggest card first.
Yep.
How do you factor that into what you want? So if someone is making $50,000-$60,000 a year,
yep,
right? But between the mortgage and kids' tuition and this, that, and the other,
right?
But what you need to pay out,
right,
is $80,000.
Yep.
And you use a credit card to fill that gap.
You need another job.
Okay.
Mom Mabel said one time, I got 3 jobs because I need 3 monies.
Right.
You know what? I love that.
So you have to put a roof over your head. So as a landlord, I strongly encourage people to pay the rent. Because if you're not paying your rent and 3 months go by and when you actually get kicked out, you got to go stay at your cousin's house, life is not going to be much fun.
Right.
So you think about what you have to do. You put yourself on a budget. You have to start saying no a lot. So if you've got big credit card debt, rent, you probably got to pay your rent, and then start working that credit card debt off and think about all the stuff that you absolutely don't need. Even with the been able to have about 10 years ago, I looked at how much money I was paying for coffee, $2, $3, $4 a day, maybe twice a day for coffee, $200 days a year working.
And those little things add up.
That's $1,000 I'm spending on coffee.
Do you have a coffee maker in your house?
Now I have a Keurig. So I make that coffee and carry it in with me.
Right.
So people are very creative. People are smarter than they even give themselves credit for. So they decide they want something. They will figure out back to get it.
So set a goal and prioritize.
It has to be a real goal though.
Okay.
Can't be a fake goal.
No, but
Can't
like
be
if
somebody
paying
else's
off
goal.
a credit card is a real goal, or having money for college tuition or
Yeah.
private school tuition, or nothing wrong with having a new car. The
Right.
one you have is 14 years old or something like
I'll
that.
give it 20. These cars are good.
Yeah.
But so have a goal, know what your goal costs.
Yes.
And then start working
And work
backwards. What do you
backwards.
have to contribute to
That's
that
it.
goal?
That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
So we're gonna take a break because not everybody's in debt, not everybody's living from paycheck to
Good.
paycheck. So
Yeah.
when we come back, we're gonna talk about investing for people
Okay.
that have a little nest egg or want to build a little nest egg. So you are listening to Chocolate for the Soul with Ramona on Intellectual Radio. On IntellectualRadio.com. I want to thank our sponsor, Scene Chicago. And today we're talking about money. So our guests to my left are Tony Wilkins, and to his left, Lex Anderson. Before the break, we talked about, for those who are struggling with credit card debt or any kind of debt or living from paycheck to paycheck, what you could do. And now we're going to talk about, again, we're going into 2018. We have saving money is always a goal, right? What advice would you give people who are looking to do one of two things? Grow a nest egg, for those who have a little money, they paid off their debt, they're now looking to grow a nest egg. And for those who, are sort of mid-career, mid-life and realize, oh, shoot, I'm getting my AARP card in about 8 years, and I only have, $40,000 in my 401k. So you can tackle the questions however you want. So one is those who are growing a nest egg, and those who need to accelerate a nest egg because they're a little later in life or just want to accelerate the way that they grow their money.
Sure. I'll give you the Tony Wilkins version of how this works. Okay. So back to what Lexi said about see. If you're still working at a corporation that has a 401k, or you're working someplace that doesn't have a 401k, the government will help you build your nest egg. Right? So if your company is going to give you, let's say, 3 to 5% of your 3% of your income, and match it, so that means you volunteer to put 6% in. They're going to put 6% in, and now you've doubled your money. Investment you can possibly make, and it's before tax. So if you're in a 30% tax bracket, you put $100 in, Uncle Sam is putting $33 in for you, and your company is putting in $60. So for a $100 investment, you're going to get $106 back, or 6% of your salary. You put in 6%, they put in 6%, you get 100% of your money back. 100%. Now that's the best return on an annual rate I can think of.
And people and low income, the mid income shy away from this type of talk because of the rhetoric, and they think, well, my company doesn't provide this 401k or savings plan or portfolio for me. There are so many different financial avenues for you to go through that you need to seek out. Banks love is your money, and they're willing to help you grow it. And way to bank with a banker and let's talk to them about investment opportunities. Countrywide has a great outreach program for financial literacy and different programs. And I just, a lot of times when I was younger, people talk about money, I just didn't want to talk about it because I didn't have any, or I didn't think I had enough. But there, from information being given from this man right here, I'm taking notes as we speak, about financial literacy. And that's why I keep driving it home. And that's what we really at BNN are trying to get out.
So this is really financial literacy.
Exactly.
Showdown.
It pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me scoot on through to what I was saying. So if you don't have a job, if you don't have a corporation that's doing that, you can open up an IRA.
Right.
I don't know what the minimums are for IRA, but I think it's like $5,000 that you can put in before you even get started, and that money comes right out of the top line of your income. So if you've got a newspaper stand, or you've got a barber shop, and you don't have a phone, or a chocolate shop, there you go. You can put that $5,000 away, and it comes out of your income tax that you don't see, and you don't touch it to your 59 and a half. They don't make you take it to your 70 and a half. Mm-hmm. So that to me is the most basic building block. I would do that even before you start checking off your debt. Now, you don't have to go to be debt free to start to invest. No. The next thing you do, as you said, there are banks. You can put your money, if you have extra money, put it in a savings account. But I'm not a fan of savings account. My wife almost didn't marry me because I had zero money in savings. That's zero in savings, right? You have to find what you're comfortable with. So at the time that I started investing in other companies and deals, I had enough money to pay my credit card off every month. I had my 401k fully maxed out. I had enough for 2 months of salary, 2 months of being out of work in the bank. And then I would listen to people who said, can you loan me some money to close on this house? Can I get $5 to hold? You see people on the street say, hey, give me 50 cents to make it to the bank. You got to start learning how to say no. And since 1991, my first check that I wrote for an investment to today, 39 investments. 11 of them have gone to zero. 3 of them we closed out because they weren't going anywhere.
We talked about one of them.
Right. Mm-hmm. And 5 of them have made me more money than all the other money that I lost in that tuition of learning how to read whether people are right or wrong. Now, even today, if somebody says, I'm moving my company from one place to another to pay the deposit, but I'm getting a security back from my other place. Well, now I can do the math and say, oh, you're getting $11,000 back? Mm-hmm. Great. I'm going to charge you 5% a month. October 1st, you need the check October 1st. I want at the beginning of November and $10,500 at the beginning of December. And if you don't get the money back, we're going to start having another conversation. So I have driven people's cars. I've got art on the wall. I got people's sneakers that, they said, oh, I'll put these up if you don't pay me back. You do have to do what you say you're going to do, right?
Wow. So you don't give money.
I take that back. I am a philanthropist, but a conscious philanthropist. Okay. So for instance, I stopped giving to United Way. I started giving to the Wolfpack football team on 63rd and Cottage.
Directly.
I stopped giving money to large organizations. I am a monthly donor to Black Tech Mecca.
Or better yet, start your own.
Or you can start your own. But you begin to develop a sense of what you're comfortable with and what you know will work. So when I loan somebody money, 97.7% chance that it's going to come back, or they will be out of some physical piece of property until they can get it together. If I invest in a business, I only invest what I can completely lose, because I invest in very early stage companies. So if a company is getting started and I really like what they're doing, I'll go, okay, I usually write a check somewhere between $10,000 and $25,000, and maybe put another 25 or 50 in as it grows. But I'm saying to myself, I have enough extra money. I can write that check. For those people who are listening, because sometimes people say, well, write me a check. No. Globally scalable, disruptively efficient digital properties with great teams where I think I can get 10 times my money. Solution, right? You got one of those ideas, we can talk. But it is a function of increasing your financial education, increasing your flexibility to do things. I'm pretty old now, and I've been doing this for a long time, so I have a few pennies to say, okay, I'm going to try that, I'm going to try that. Or you're in a tight spot, I can loan you $10,000, $15,000. Against me, and I've known you over a long period of time, that you're either going to pay it back over time, or you have something of value in your house that you will give to me until you can get it right. And that you figure it out. You have to be very strict. Family, friends, coworkers, you have to do what you say you're going to do.
So I hear you saying two things. People need to have skin in the game, right? Even if it's a gift, right? You still.
No gifts. Gifts are gifts.
Okay, but you still want to know that you're going to get a return. You still want to know that what you gave is going to at least serve the cause that it's intended to.
It means something that I want to do. So, for instance, I talk about the Wolfpack football team. Radcliffe, Tanya Coleman have been for 20 years taking little hard-headed boys out of the ghetto and little girls who want to be cheerleaders and put them in a football scene. He says, look, you're going to do it my way or you're going to go home. 50 kids, 3 weeks later, he's down to 50 because he said, you will go home. I believe that's discipline is one of the most important things we can convey to our young people, because personal discipline, social discipline gets you prepared for financial discipline. That's a return on my investment, because the more properly educated, properly socialized young Black people we have, the better it's going to be for my children, my grandchildren, who they can work with.
I'll tell you what taught me discipline was to actually see it grow, whether it was small or substantially. I said, this is working. And, I first had in safe chip properties, and they were very small. At the time the company was doing well, but then I started to diversify, make a little bit more money, and take some more risk. And I think when you start off and you see that growth, you take a minute, 6 months, you watch your money grow, and that makes a big difference. That will implement a lot of discipline.
And you have, I think when you're talking about, you have a nest egg. Let's say you're a CTA bus driver. Mm-hmm. Loans paid off, you've got some money in the bank, you're trying to figure out, how do I make this bigger? Mm-hmm. Okay, you're still working every day. Look at that and say, wait, do I like real estate? Do I like the stock market? Investing in early stage companies? Do I know a guy who's got a barbershop or a woman who has a beauty parlor who's trying to add another booth or add a little something? When I make money, that's great. When I lose money, that's tuition, and it better be tuition that helps me make a better investment the next time around. Right. So I don't want to invest in anything I'm never going to be invested in anymore. When I invested in real estate, the first 2 or 3 real estate projects I went in, nasty, unpleasant losses. Then I got with a guy who really knew what he was doing. We made a small investment. It worked out. Checks started coming in. So, okay, this is how it goes. Mm-hmm. Then we started investing in properties on the west side. That need a lot of work. And then you just begin to learn things that you can't get out of a book. I tell people all the time, you could have Mark Spitz as your roommate. You could have Michael Phelps as your roommate. You could have his coach as your best friend. But unless you get in the water and get wet, you will never know how to swim. Right.
And the both of you are saying something that's really important in terms of being disciplined, but also sticking with it. Because, you talked about those first few investments that went sour. A lot of people give up, right? It's like, okay, I don't have any more money to throw away. I know someone who says, don't lend or give what you can't afford to lose.
That is good advice.
And so, but you never really think you're going to lose it, right? You go in and you still are sort of optimistic. So
one of the things I hear you saying, Tony, is that even with the first few investments that didn't go well, you kept investing because in the long run, you knew that this was a way that you could still, in making the right investments, maximize your return.
That's right. I looked at the people who were very wealthy, get up and go to work every day. That's where I decided I wanted to try to hit. I'm still working on that, but I'm still get going on.
So I want to talk about people. Earlier we talked about people have a goal, right, for 2018.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an entrepreneur. We're all entrepreneurs at this table, and I know a lot of entrepreneurs. People who want to start a business or trying to figure out how to start a business, who currently run businesses that they're trying to grow. So as you think about, again, as we go into the next year, I'm already looking at my 3-year budget and 3-year financial goals. You and I met, Tony, because I was doing sort of a Shark Tank kind of pitch to investors. And for those who are trying to get others engaged in their business, maybe not a Tony Wilkins, but those who are thinking about crowdfunding or who are pitching to their families, right? Yeah. Maybe they have family members like you, and uncle says, I'll lend you $7,000, but here's the interest rate, here's our written agreement.
Just write it down.
Yes. What advice do you give entrepreneurs who are trying to grow their business financially and or are looking for others to invest and support their
That's
business?
An easy one. You wrote that one down.
Okay.
So I tell investors, explain your business in 5 words. 5 words.
I make great chocolate.
That's perfect. That's perfect. That's why you're successful, right? Okay. Phenomenal analogy. He said, Dad, I've been doing this wrong. I've been telling everybody about 6 Flags and what I want to build. Telling me, just focus on the roller coaster, right? I'm happy if you're going to sell to Amazon or Facebook one day. That's great. Let's sell to one person. Show me that you can walk before you run. So this gets back to being very focused about what you can do prove to your investor. So there's the most successful investment that I've made. A woman who had this idea very well. It's the only time I ever said, if you need an investor. But she told me exactly what she was going to do. But for the next 3 years, she kept trying to build something that was way bigger than what we were trying to do. And I was like, you can prove to me that you can get somebody to buy this thing. I can't invest. 3 years go by. She finally goes, okay, I'm giving up on all this other stuff. Let's do this. Okay, wrote a check. 3 years later, the business had grown. Bigger than we expected. I can't go out and get more customers. I need more money. I wrote another check. We get further down the road. We need to raise some more money. I wrote more checks. We eventually sold it. But the only reason I kept writing checks is she kept doing what she said she was going to do and then more. As an entrepreneur, prove that you can do what you say you're going to do, and that will get you the privilege to ask for more money the next time around.
Yeah, and I feel as an investor, I'm not an investor, but I know people who have invested in various projects. Jeffrey Coleman, who's my partner, is doing wonderful things. He's starting some great businesses soon to be announced. But the one thing that his concept, and to let the investors know, if you're going to invest money, invest in the concept. Don't go into the concept trying to change the concept. Mm-hmm. Really understand that it's not your business. And you have an interest, but you going in trying to change that concept, because only one person can think about your chocolate. If I come and say I'm going to invest and say, you need to put more caramel in that, then I don't believe in the product. And at the same time, we're going in circles, wasting a lot of time and money based on conceptions versus investment. Right. So I believe, like, as an investor, you should really wholeheartedly believe in that person and in that investment and leave it alone. And if you don't, we'll pull your money, after that. But, too many, what's the saying? Too many hands in the pot.
Mm-hmm. Right? Too many. Yeah.
What you're saying, what you're saying is true, because once you write a check to an entrepreneur, that's gone until they start to make enough money to get it back or sell. Most times they don't sell. They have to try and pay you back.
And as a business owner, and I've been involved in businesses, is that you also have to understand that people who come up with businesses are very creative and artistic and very passionate about their business. And it doesn't mean that they're very knowledgeable about consulting or money. You have to be able to trust about marketing, about media outreach. You can't wear all the hats. You have to trust those people to do that. I know some great business people who are horrible communicators, and you go in and they will break through. That's why you have a Salesforce team or consultants. So I don't, as an entrepreneur, you almost have to humble yourself to stay true to your craft and be around like-minded people that can handle those affairs for you.
Right.
But I'm also hearing you say that you have to pick the right partners or investors too, because not all investors are hands-off. Some investors come in and they do want to change your formula or make you grow too fast or, do whatever. So what are some of the sort of, that.
Good question. Good question. So let's talk a little bit about your company for a second. Just a second. Right?
Okay.
So one of the things that makes your company good is that you're doing something that you actually know what to do. You didn't say, oh, I used to make these mother's kitchen. I saw her, I watched her. No, you've gone to school. You present a product. People taste the product. They go, oh my God, this is amazing. And you start it and move forward slowly. Now, do you know finance? Do you know building out a shop? Do you know all the other things? I think for me, it's first, an investment I make is 85% people. Mentors, advisors, co-founders, customers, users. Anybody who says, oh, wow, Ramona is a genius, she's doing well, tells me that you've got a track record that's worth investing in. Now, I'm a little different. I take a little different tack. I'm in an early enough stage where I like to be hands-on. And all the ancillary things, legal, administrative, taxes, everything that you should not be worried about while you make your part, I can help you with, because I've seen it 1,000 times.
And that's what I was alluding to, pretty much. Like the creative part is something that
has to stay right there.
Stay there.
Right.
And the investment part, if they do bring those things to the table as far as consultations, things of that nature, you do allow them, but it's a trust factor. That's what you're
and that's to me, it's almost like chemistry, right? I have told people, somebody wants to fund a whole business for $150,000, but they don't know anything about the business, and they want to bring their friends in to have jobs there. Right. You have to trust your partners early on, because in the early stages of a business, it's 85% people. When it's IBM or Ford or big bank, it's 15% people. But that space where early stage companies are, where you're going to your aunt, your uncle, your cousins, you have to say, here's what I'm going to do. Money. Here's when it's coming back. And if it's not coming back on time, I will let you know before you ask me for the money. People, I'm an investor, I'm not an entrepreneur. I start off as an investor. But if things get bad, I'm an entrepreneur, because I'm trying to get my money back. I'll tell you one other thing that as an investor and entrepreneur should be thinking. One of my mentors said, he tells the people he invests in there's only one reason that they can either get fired or never get any more money from them. If they fail to share bad news early, because they don't necessarily know the answers. They just want the opportunity to participate and bring in their network to solve the problems.
You guys have talked about so many things that I can relate to personally. I mean, the taxes, the payroll, the, construction, facilities, all those things that people don't see behind the scenes. People think you make chocolate, that's awesome. And it is, but there are all these other parts of the business that, quite frankly, and Lex, when you're talking about trusting your partners, it really is important to find the right partners and due diligence. I mean, I've had some partners that were not. I learned trial by fire, where it's like and then you're really trying to, recover and recuperate. But I think sort of one of my big takeaways from this show is that you just have to keep. You have to be persistent. You have to just keep moving forward. Take the sort of bad experiences as lessons, education.
Tuition.
Yes, tuition. That's the key word.
The key word today.
And think about that moving forward.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry our time went so
Oh,
quickly.
it
We are
fun.
near
It was
the end
great.
of our show.
Thank
I
you.
want to thank Tony Wilkins and Lex Anderson for
Tune
joining
into
us.
Barbershop Network News when you get an opportunity.
Where can people find it?
BNN Barbershop Network News on Facebook. We also have a social media presence with Instagram and Snapchat. And our website is being built as we speak. So Barbershop Network. Jeffrey Coleman.
I'm on the
Thank you for joining us. We will see you next week on Chocolate for the Soul with Ramona on IntellectualRadio.com.